All praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to everyone joining me on this program. This is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program. And as always, it's an honor for me to stand before you on the Lord's holy Sabbath day. Now, before we get started in this lesson, I just want to invite you all to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Don't forget to smash that notification bell. Check the description box down below. And let's get started with this lesson. Now, this particular lesson, guys, is Purim, the Feast of Lots. Purim, the Feast of Lots. Now, I want to go ahead and jump into this because some people in our faith, in this Hebrew faith, some don't believe, hey, we shouldn't do it, we shouldn't observe it, we shouldn't celebrate it, and yet it is in the Bible. Now, I will say this, that it is not part of the plan of salvation for, the Hebrews. It's not one of the holy days, but it is sanctioned by the Hebrews, in the Bible. Also, the Messiah, or, no one seems to have a problem with it in the Bible, right? Now, that being said, I must say that if you observe it, you're fine. If you don't observe it, you're fine. Okay, so that one, I treat it as one of the optional ones because it's not one of the one of the holy days. But of course, when it was instituted, let me just go ahead and say this. When it was instituted, it said should be held as a statute forever in there. Okay. So you're going to have much debate about it. I mean, it's up to you. But regardless, it is in our scriptures. So we're going to at least understand what it is, what it means, the history of it. We need to know what it's all about. Whether or not you celebrate it, observe it or not, I mean, that's up to you. That's on you. Okay, you guys figure that out. There's not a whole lot of things. People wonder, like, well, what should I do on Purim? If they want to observe, like, what should I do? Okay, there's a few things, but it's just not a lot. It's just not a lot of things that you should do. You should do this. You should do that. It's not a lot. Okay, it's just a couple of things if you want to. But again, guys, it's nothing for us to be divided on, okay? Some of you guys will observe it. Some of you guys won't. Some of them think it's unnecessary. Some people say, hey, you know what? It was instituted. We should do it. Relax, okay? Just relax. You decide however you want to do it. But let's learn about the lesson anyway. It is in our Bible. And here at Fountain of Israel, we want to know everything in the Bible, okay? We want to learn and study everything's in the Bible. It doesn't matter, okay? We want to get into everything. So let's go ahead and read a little bit on the Feast of Purim, or the Feast of Lots, okay? Purim, the Feast of Lots. Now, Purim is the Hebrew word for lots, okay? English, Feast of Lots. A Jewish, I really hate saying Jewish, guy. I just don't like saying Jewish. It's Jew or Israelite. Make up our mind. Okay, a Jewish festival commemorating the survival of the Jews who, in the 5th century BCE, were marked for death by their Persian rulers. The story is related in the biblical book of Esther, which we will be in there, right? And then Haman, a chief minister of King Ahasuerus, incensed that Mordecai, a Jew, held him in disdain and refused obeisance, convinced the king that the Jews living under Persian rule were rebellious and should be slaughtered. With the king's consent, Haman set a date for the execution, the 13th day of the month of Adar, by casting lots, and built a gallows for Mordecai, right? And that's in the Britannica, if you guys want to look at that. Let's look at a little bit of some of the history on it. Okay. Berosus, early 3rd century BCE, provides context for the account in that he records the introduction of idols and Anahita under Artaxerxes II Memnon, right? Throughout the Persian Empire. The 1st century CE historian Josephus recounts the origins of Purim in the book 11 of his Antiquities of the Jews. He follows the Hebrew book of Esther, but shows awareness of some of the additional material found in the Greek version of the Septuagint. In that, he too identifies Ahasuerus as Artaxerxes and provides the text of the king's letter. He also provides additional information on the date of events relative to Ezra and Nehemiah. Josephus also recorded the Persian persecution of Jews and mentions Jews being forced to worship at Persian erected shrines. The Josephon, a 10th century CE compilation of Jewish history, includes an account The origins of Purim in its chapter 4. It too follows the original biblical account and includes additional traditions matching those found in the Greek version and Josephus, who the author claims as a source, with the exception of the details of the letters found in the latter works. It also provides other contextual information relating to Jewish and Persian history, such as the identification of Darius the Mede and the uncle and father-in-law of Cyrus. A brief Persian account of events is provided by Islamic historian Muhammad Jarir al-Tabari. Okay, sorry if I butchered that name. In his letter, History of the Prophets and Kings, completed in 915 CE, basing his account on Jewish and Christian sources, al-Tabari provides additional details such as the original Persian form, Astura, for Esther. He places events during the rule of Haman, Artaxerxes II, but confuses him with Adashar al-Tawil al-Ba, Artaxerxes I. While assuming Ahasuerus to be the name of the co-ruler, another brief Persian account is recorded by Masudi in the Meadows of Gold, completed in 947 CE. He refers to a Jewish woman who had married the Persian king Haman, Artaxerxes II, and delivered her people, thus corroborating this identification of Ahasuerus. See, what we have to remember, guys, is sometime throughout history, depending on who's telling the history, names get changed. It's just a different, the person may be known by a different name, and it's not really about translation. It's just it's like a different name, but the accounts are the same. So you're like, okay, well, we're talking about the same person. We're talking about the same account. We're talking about the same time period. We're talking about the same kingdom. I mean, I'm saying? It's the same person by a different name, basically. So let's go ahead and finish up some of this. First, a Jewish woman. Okay, I have that. He also mentions the woman's daughter, Kumai, who is not known in Jewish tradition, but is well remembered in Persian folklore. Al-Tabari calls her Kumani and tells how her father, Adashar married her. How her father married, hopefully that's married her off. Ferdowsi is his Shah Nameh, 1000 CE, also tells of King Bahman marrying Kumai. Interesting. 19th century Bible commentary generally identifies Ahasuerus with Artaxerxes I of Persia. Okay. Again, it depends. Depends on who's telling the story, right? Now, who wrote the book of Esther? Let's get into that a little bit. And then we'll get into the book of Esther here soon. And in fact, I'm going to go over there just so I'm already there. Okay. So who wrote the book of Esther? The authorship remains unknown. The writer understood the Persian court from the details given of the daily life and traditions and writes from a pro-Jewish perspective that leads to the theory that a Jewish eyewitness wrote the book. Mordecai, in chapter 9, recorded events of Purim, so there is some speculation that he wrote the book. Historians believe the book was written between 470 and 424 BC, during the reign of Artaxerxes, son of King Xerxes. Judaism refers to Esther as the Megillah of Esther, meaning scroll of Esther. It is one of 5 scrolls included in the Jewish biblical canon and part of the Ketuvim, the final section of the biblical Bible called the Tanakh. Okay? Now, give you a little context before we get into the book. Okay, so context of the background of Esther. The events occurred during the Persian captivity between 483 and 473 BC, during the first half of the reign of King Xerxes. Okay, this is Greek name. It's also translated as Ahasuerus, which is the Hebrew name. Okay, Xerxes the Greek and Ahasuerus the Hebrew, right? So that right there, that's a translation right there. The events took place in Susa, the capital city of Persis, which is modern day Iran. Okay. The opening banquet scene in Esther corresponds to the historical time period of Xerxes' military campaign against the Greeks in 479 BC. The Greeks defeated the Persians, okay? Remember what the Most High said in the book of Daniel, the kingdoms that's going to be coming in succession, right? The first remnant of people captured have returned to Judah to restore the temple and worship. Mordecai and others remained in Persia. Esther is unique because of the absence of any reference to God or use of God's name. However, God's sovereign care for the Jews permeates the book. The book explains the Feast of Purim, still celebrated by Jews to remember the deliverance from Haman's evil plot. So we're going to go ahead and get into the scriptures. Now, we're going to read a lot of it. I will skip around a little bit, but I won't skip around as much as I will before, right? So we're just going to kind of capsulize and summarize the books of Esther right here. So you're going to get a truncated version of Esther here, but we're going to read quite a bit. You guys follow along. When I move around a bit, I'll let you know, but I will tell you, I will read a big chunk. It just won't be everything. Okay. I'll read large sections, but it won't be a whole lot. Now, since I have a lot of ground to cover, I won't pause too much. You won't hear too much commentary. You hear a little bit, but not too much commentary. Okay, you guys are with me? All right, so with that, let's go ahead and start. We're going to start right at the beginning. Esther 1:1. And I'll let you guys know when I will move around. Okay, so now, now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, which is, Artaxerxes or Xerxes. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia over 127 provinces. Okay, that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the third year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes and provinces being before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty, many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. The beds were of gold and silver upon the pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, vessels being diverse one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Eborna, Bidtha, and Agatha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look upon. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew law and judgment. And the next unto him was Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Morsina, and Minukan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law, because she has not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains? And Minukan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen has not done wrong to the kings only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in the eyes, when it shall be reported the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. So already you don't disobey the command of the king, even if you're his wife. You just don't do that. And we look at relationships today. You know what? I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna look at relationship today. I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna say that this is a bad idea. Okay, her husband and king is telling her, hey, come on out here. Okay, come on out here. Just want to show you off, and she refused. Okay, so this is bad. Now, what they're saying is that the other women, they're gonna be like, wait a minute. So the king told the queen to come near before him, and she refused. And so now, we see the influence, right there, they will be influenced. Right there, they will be influenced. They're like, well, shoot, she didn't come out. You guys get it. I digress, but a little. 18, likewise, shall the ladies of Persia and Medes say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deeds of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. See, they're going to get an attitude. We're going to stay focused. 19, if it pleases the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and of the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. So you get cut off. Woo, I am resisting, guys. I'm resisting a digression. Okay? So I'm just going to stick to the story, resist the digression, stay focused. So she didn't want to listen to what he says. He got rid of her. Okay? Plain and simple. Okay? Just plain and simple. He said, you know what? I'm going to give her seat to someone. I'm going to give her estate to someone else. Let's find someone else. Okay. 20. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. Sounds like a good idea. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Menucan. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house. Don't work like that today, right? And that it should be published according to the language of every people. Okay, so we pretty much did all of chapter 1. I'm going to read some of chapter 2, and then we'll skip. We'll go on. Okay, we want to read the account of how Esther became queen. So let's continue. Okay, we're in chapter 2, verse 1. After these things, when the wrath of the king Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, let there be fair young virgins sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of the king, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the palace, to the house of the women, unto the custody of Hag the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given to them. Everything they need to be purified, right? They're already virgins and they still have to be purified. Okay, that's raising it up a notch. And let the maidens which pleased the king be queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Okay, hey, no love lost. It's like, okay, I'll get another one. Okay, no love lost there. Now, in Shushan, the place there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had carried away. And he brought up Hadashah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter. For she had neither father nor mother, and the maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. Like he treated her like his own daughter, took her in, young, beautiful, virgin, treated her like a daughter. So it came to pass when the king's command and his decree was heard, and when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan the palace to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also unto the king's house to the custody of Haggai, keeper of the women. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness of him, and he speedily gave her things of purification and such things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens which were meet to be given her. She had 7 women working for her, okay, to assist her in everything she had to do, okay. Meet for her to give her out of the king's house, and he preferred her and her maids unto the best place of the house of the women. Esther had not showed her people nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. Like, don't tell them that you're a Jew, okay? Don't tell them you're one of the children of the captivity, right? And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the women's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. Now, when every maid's turn was come to go in to King Ahasuerus, after that she had been 12 months, according to the manner of the women, 12 months. So were the days of their purification accomplished, to wit, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months of sweet odors, and with other things for the purification of women. 12 months of being purified to come before the king. 12 months. Okay. 13. Then thus came every maiden unto the king. Whatsoever she desired was given her to go with her out of his house of the women unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the women, to the custody of Shahagaz, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. Okay. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and that she were called by name. Now, when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her for his daughter, had come to go in unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king chamberlain, the keeper of the women, appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto the king Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. At 18, and we'll move around. Then the king made a great feast unto all the princes and the servants, even Esther's feast. And he made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. Okay, so this is how Esther became queen. Quite simple. She's a virgin. She was beautiful. She definitely found grace. She definitely had favor of the Most High, which that's great. That's good. Even though, again, the Most High isn't even mentioned in the book of Esther. But as we can see, we can plainly read that she is gaining favor. Okay, this is about the liberation and actually it's more not liberation, but it's more of avoiding annihilation. Okay, this is what the story is about, is avoiding annihilation. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Since we have so much ground to cover, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to go to chapter 2. And let's see. No, I'm already in 2. I'm sorry. I'm going to skip up. Let's go to chapter 3. Starting at the first verse. Any parts that we skip over, guys, you're more than welcome to go ahead and read it. Because, we're trying to get big chunks of it within an hour or so, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. But if you want to read everything, you just read everything straight through. Okay, but we're just kind of we want to hit all the highlights, right? Chapter 3, verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. Okay, so this is where we want to get into, he's plotting to kill the Jews and all that other stuff, right? Because he just felt disrespected. Okay. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Mordecai didn't have any respect for him, right? He was just like, whatever. Okay, whatever. Then the king's servant, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matters would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. Okay, and excuse me. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for he had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast Pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of the kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. It's not a good idea for the king to put up with them, right? If it pleases the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries, right? So he's putting bounties on their head, right? And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Hagagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, The silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written, according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province, according to the writings thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring. Okay, so he just put out a hit on all the Jews, right? All because he felt disrespected for Mordecai, right? So there's a hit out on the Jews. We're going to skip forward and go to chapter 4. Okay, I'm just giving you guys the highlights. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and keep going. Okay, chapter 4 in verse 1. When Mordecai perceived all that was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried with a loud and a bitter voice. And he came even before the king's gate, for none might enter into the king's gate clothed with sackcloth. And in every province, whatsoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was a great mourning among the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes, because they know that they can be killed on sight. And anyone can get them. At that point, all of them there, anybody can get it. Okay? So you're waking up knowing that the king said, hey, the Jews got to go. You're a Jew, and you can get killed any day now. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of weeping, wailing, and a lot of mourning. Okay? A lot of sackcloth and ashes. Okay? This is how they express sorrow and grief, etc. So Esther's maid and her chamberlain came and told it her. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she went and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him, but he received it not. Then called Esther for Hathach, one of the king's chamberlains, whom he had appointed to attend upon her, and gave him a commandment to Mordecai to know what it was and why it was. So Hathach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. And Mordecai told him all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. Also, he gave him the copy of the writings of the decree that was at Shushan to destroy them, to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go in unto the king to make supplication unto him, and to make request before him for her people. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hathach and gave him commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come in unto the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from other place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and whom knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer, right? So they're sending word between each other, right? Okay, Mordecai's out in the city, sackcloth, ashes, grieving, upset, and then of course an assistant of Esther coming, asking him a question, telling him what Esther says. Then he tells the assistant, then the assistant goes back and tell Esther what her uncle said, so on and so forth. That's what's going on here, right? And then it says 15, and then Esther bade them return Mordecai this answer, okay? Go, gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, and so will I go in unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish. He said, okay, I'm going to go talk to the king. I'm not supposed to go into this particular place, where the king is, unless he put out a golden scepter. It doesn't matter if it's a man or woman. You go in there, you can get killed. Okay, is what he's saying. But what she's saying, I will go and talk to him. Okay, she's like, I'll do it. If I die, I die. So Mordecai went away and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. So he went ahead, got all the Jews he can get, and they went to fast and all that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and jump in chapter 5. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the gate of the house. In verse 2. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. Then said to the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is thy request? It shall be given thee to even given thee to half of the kingdom. And Esther answered, if it seems good unto the king, if it's all right with you, if it seems good unto the king, let the king and Haman come this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther had said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request? Even to the half of the kingdom it shall be performed. Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, if I found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king has said. Then went Haman forth that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, He was full of indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he had came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king. Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther the queen did let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. And yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then said Xerxes his wife and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. So we're gonna go ahead and hang him in the gallows, right? So he just like, look, I'm promoted. I got all this. I got a bunch of children. I got my wife. I got property. The king promoted me. Everything is great. Life is good. But this one guy, Mordecai, I don't like this dude. This dude keep disrespecting me. He not showing me the proper respect that I deserve. This is Haman's attitude, right? He's not showing me the respect that I deserve. Does he know who I am? And they're like, hey man, get a gallows, let's hang him. Let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of this dude. And then when you go to the party, you can just be happy and, do your thing. Everything's great. He's like, you know what? Let's do that. Okay, let's continue. Chapter 6. And on that night could not the king sleep, and be commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains, to keep the door, keep of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus. The king said, what honor and dignity has been done to Mordecai for this? Then said the king's servant that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. And the king said, who is in this court? Now Haman was come into the outer court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do the honor more than to myself? He had the big head. He's like, well, honor me, And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, which the king used to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head, and let his apparel and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal whom the king is delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor. Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse, and as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of that thou hast spoken. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the streets of the city, and proclaimed there before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house mourning, and having his head covered. Okay, so he's upset. He's mad. Like, wait a minute, how are you going to honor Mordecai? What's going on? So he's confused, upset. He butthurt. It's not right. He not cool. We're gonna jump to chapter 7 real quick, okay? So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen, and the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of the wine, that he said, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted to thee. And what is thy request? And it shall be performed, even to the half of the king. It don't matter. Whatever you want, even if you want half of the kingdom, I'll give that to you. So what is that you want? Okay. Then Esther, the queen, answered and said, if thou found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I had held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage. Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. Dun, dun, dun! Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king arises from the banquet of wine, in his wrath went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make request for his life to Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. And then the king returned out of the palace garden into the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was. He touched the queen's bed. Doesn't sound like a big deal to you and I today, but is a big deal. How are you gonna put your hands on the king's wife's bed? You guys do some history, you'll know that's blatant disrespect. Okay, you can't do that. Okay, so let's take a look. Then he said the king, banquet and wine having fell upon the bed there Esther was. Then said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Haborna, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who had spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that had been prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. He's like, who do you think you are? So if we just kind of look at what happened here, guys, okay? If we just kind of look at what happened, okay? All right. Haman, who he got promoted, let's be honest, he got promoted up pretty fast. He was fast rising, becoming the king's right-hand man. Okay? Fast rising star. He kind of got up there, but his ego got inflated as well. And the one guy who did not like his character, which is Mordecai, Esther's uncle, something about him he didn't like. He didn't respect him. He's like, hey, I don't care who you are. You know what I'm saying? I don't like you. Okay, this is Mordecai. He's like, I don't care who you are. I don't like you. And obviously Haman took notice. He don't bow. He don't stand up. He don't greet. He talked to me crazy. He looked kind of with contempt or disrespect. I don't like the way he's eyeballing me. Right? Now, all he had to do, brothers and sisters, was leave Mordecai alone. But he couldn't. And so he wanted to go ahead and trick the king. Hey, you know what? The people who don't listen to you, people who don't, let's go ahead and kill them. People, these children of captivity, let's go ahead and just kill these people. And the king, obviously the king is like, okay, well, I can't have any disrespect. They ain't going to respect my laws. And okay, we got to get rid of them. So he puts a hit out on all the Jews. So it's like, okay. And then he wanted specifically to humiliate and kill Mordecai. Okay, so that decree wasn't enough. He had to go ahead and up the ante a bit and want to kill Mordecai. But it backfired on him because apparently he didn't know that the queen was also a Jew and that Mordecai was her uncle. Apparently he didn't know. Okay. So yeah, this whole thing backfired on him. They say, hey, the gallows that you prepared for Mordecai, it's for you now. Okay. And so her whole petition, now this is the queen. Now I also want you guys to remember, okay, the Israelites were in captivity. Okay, this one is the Medes and Persian captivity right there, right? So they're in captivity, and an Israelite, Esther, okay, Benjamite, Esther becomes queen of Persia and the Medes, Israelite, becomes queen. Now, she doesn't think about herself when the king offered her up to half the kingdom. And he did it at least 2 times. Whatever you want, let me know. It's yours. You got it. What she said, oh, well, if you just come to a banquet that I prepared for you. Oh, well, if you just come to the banquet, I prepared for you and everything. See, she wanted to just do nice things for her husband, right? Now, obviously, she was setting the stage for, Haman to get his, get his recompense. And then finally, she said, if I found favor in your sight or whatever, my one request would be this. Could you not destroy my people? Because you got an adversary, you got a snake in our midst that all they want to do is to destroy me and my people. Okay? And King Ahasuerus is like, well, who is it? What were you talking about? Who trying to destroy you and your people and stuff? That dude. Okay, Haman. All right? So there's our little recap. We're going to continue on a little bit. Going to read some of 8. Read some of 8, not all of it. Read some of 9, not all of it. Some of 9, but we're going to get to it. So let's go ahead and read a little bit of 8 so we can get some more context. 8, going to start at 1. And on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, into Esther, the queen. She's like, you do whatever you want with him, queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. Like, this is my uncle. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Woo! That's so cool. So cool. Okay? And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Haggite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther rose and stood before the king, and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seemed right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of the Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? How can I deal with that? How can I be happy queen, then I see all my people die, get destroyed? How can I do that? See how unselfish she was? Write ye also for the Jews as it liked you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. The writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring may no man reverse. Then were the king's scribe called at the time in the 3rd month, that is, the month of Sivan, and the 23rd day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants and the deputies and rulers of the provinces, which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. And he wrote in the king's Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules and camels and young dromedaries. This is powerful stuff, guys. Very powerful stuff. Wherein the king granted the Jews, which were in every city, to gather themselves together, and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people in the province that would assault them, both little ones of women, and to take the spoil of them as a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against the day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the post that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan and palace. And Mordecai went out before the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Okay, so we're going to skip to chapter 9, okay? But see, things are starting to change. They're going to be liberated, right? They're going to be liberated. They're not going to be destroyed. They get to live, okay? They get to live because of the unselfishness of Queen Esther, okay? And the character of Mordecai. I love how the Most High always preserves somebody in each generation, each captivity, someone that's got to be still a voice that cries out, that stands for something. And even in the midst of our captivity, he can help us. He can deliver us as he did this day. If it wasn't for Esther and her uncle Mordecai, most of us, none of us would even be here. Israelites anyway. None of us would even be here because selfless act. When they're thinking about more than just themselves, they're thinking about their people. And I want to point out the closeness that they had. Yes, Israel fought Israel, stuff like that. Yeah, family fights. But the big picture is that, we're all in this together. We're all in this captivity together. So in a moment when they can save their own skin personally, because she could have said, don't kill Mordecai, don't kill my uncle. No. All my people. Please don't let my people be destroyed. Amazing. Let's get into 9. We'll get to 9. We'll read some of it, maybe not all of it, but we'll read some of it and then we'll close out. Okay? 9 and 1. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to put in execution in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was returned to the contrary that the Jews had rule over them that hated them, meaning they had a right to fight back. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the kings Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. And no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all people. And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. Mordecai became one of them dudes, like a right-hand man. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. This is in captivity, an Israelite in captivity, just kind of like Daniel waxed bold, kind of like Daniel became somebody in captivity, kind of like Joseph became someone in captivity. Okay. Now even Judah and Maccabees or whatever became somebody in captivity. Now that was from a rebellion, but he still became great in the Maccabean revolt. In captivity, greatness can come out of it. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? This is how we were not destroyed. Boy, let's see here. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan, the palace, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. Okay, we're going to go ahead and skip a little bit. Let's go up to verse 11. And on that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan, the place was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther, the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan, the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now that is thy petition, and it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further, and it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. So now he getting his 10 sons got his 10 sons caught up. Haman's dead. Now it's time for his 10 sons. All right. Because they may, have hatred towards the Jews and want to, have hate because of what happened to their father, want to take revenge and all that. And you got to eradicate that, right? Got to eradicate that. Let them be hanged on the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given unto Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men in Shushan, but as the prey they laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 25,000. But they laid not their hands on the prey. And on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, rested they, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Of feasting and gladness, okay? But the Jews that were in Shushan assembled themselves on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Okay, so that was read up to, well, let me read 19. Therefore, the Jews of the village that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month of Adar a day of gladness and feastings, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. Okay, this is where you sending gifts one to another, right? So it's a day of gladness, and so they want to go ahead and do that, okay? And they wanted to, and we're going to read a little bit more. I was going to stop, but I'm going to read a little bit more. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the kings of Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly. And as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions, or sending gifts, portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. Okay, so this is 9 and 22. Okay, hold on, let's look up the portions real quick. Okay, so we can get this done. Esther 9 and 22. Okay, 22, and let's look up these portions. Portions is Hebrew 4490, and it is a part or a portion, properly something weighed out, that is generally a division, specifically of food or a ration, also a lot, such things as belonged, a part or a portion, right? So typically it's food, right? Send each other food, make a plate, send each other food, stuff like that. So for the most part, that's what it is. Later start turning into gifts and things like that, but that's what it is right here. Okay, it's a portion of something, but it doesn't mean it's exclusively food. Okay, doesn't necessarily mean that, but let's go ahead and continue on. All right, let's continue. Let's see here. I'm gonna drop down to, let's see here. Okay, so they're gonna go ahead and destroy the gallows. Okay, so they're gonna destroy the gallows. If we read in 25, 26, wherefore they call these. Okay, well, we gotta read that one. 25. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of pure. Therefore, for all the words of this letter and of that which had been concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them and upon their seed and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing and according to the appointment time every year, and that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, and all these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. This right here is why some people will observe it, right? They're just like, hey, we got to do it. We got to observe it, because it's that, right? Now, some people are like, well, we're not in the Medo-Persian captivity and all that. Okay, but you guys, you pray on it, you fast, you petition the Most High, you figure out whether or not you want to do it or not. I'm leaving that up to you. 29. Then Esther, the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus with words of peace and truth. These days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them, and as they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of this fasting and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in a book. And it was written in a book. So, we read most of it. I mean, we probably read like 80%, but there's spots where I did skip. And as I told you I would. But for the most part, ladies and gentlemen, that is Purim, the Feast of Lots. It's really about the Jews, the Israelites, not being annihilated. Okay, not being wiped off the map. So it turned completely, a complete 180 happened. They were meant for destruction, and they end up prospering under Mordecai and Queen Esther, Israelites. So with that, I hope you guys got something out of it. This has been the Fountain of Israel. Purim, the Feast of Lots. Till next time, search the scriptures and prove all things. Shalom, Israel.